Maybe we should start with your upcoming album and the two singles that are available for streaming right now, War and Money Money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On first listen, they sound a little less heavy on the rock guitar sound and a little more atmospheric. Do you think that's accurate?
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Exactly accurate.
Yeah, we were kind of experimenting with where we wanted to go sonically after the last album, and we were listening to a lot of like Duran Duran and Robin and a lot more synth heavy artists, and we're still a rock. I still consider us a rock band, like an alternative rock band, because a lot of our roots are in punk rock and classic rock. But we just wanted to experiment a little bit and see kind of where the songs took us, and we feel like this instrumentation was the best way to present the new songs. So we're excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of also a going back to the earlier days when we were a three-piece. The guitar's sound was really inspired by the sort of new wave punk stuff, sort of jangly, a little bit gritty, reverb and stuff like that. And then once we started getting louder and playing bigger venues, we sort of went up to the high gain, heavy guitars. But then once we sort of went back, we got into using synthesizers a lot more, so that sort of fits in our brains with kind of going back to the new wavy kind of guitar sounds. And,
Right.
So there's a lot of that on the record, just jangly, less rocky. But it's still, I mean, our goal, I guess, has always been to try to achieve a big, powerful, heavy sound. And for a few years, in the middle of our spanning time, we sort of created that by being like a heavy, hard rock band. And now we're trying to figure out a different way to do it, just by using more synths
and different instruments as well. Like this new album, we have saxophone, we have trumpet, we had a bunch of our friends come in and record gang vocals and sing almost. We want to create like a more gospel kind of choir effect. So it's been really fun kind of working with different artists and musicians just to try and get, a well-rounded sound. It's been fun.
The releasing of new music is an interesting thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Sort of revealing bits and pieces of what is going to be, an 11-song entity, bit by bit. So, you hear one song, it's like, well, the album's going to sound like this. And then, Money Money leads you to think that it might have a little bit more traditional rock and roll to it. And
we like to confuse you.
Well, and I mean, in my opinion, the best albums that I like are the ones that from song to song, it's a bit of a journey. Obviously when we did Fast Motions, that record was meant to be very kind of concise and hard rock, all the way. And that's what we were doing at the time. We were like, okay, well, let's make a rock record. And then, we did that phase of touring for about 2 years after that record. And so now it's kind of like, you sort of do a backswing and you go, okay, sort of anything but rock, like there's a little bit, I feel like, the money rockiness is a bit more tongue-in-cheek, it's not, it's got that twangy guitar riff that's sort of, the Money riff, like you'd hear it on alt-rock radio, and so it's there kind of on purpose, and, people who know us are like, oh yeah, they're being kind of funny there. I mean, also artists too that do back and forth. Like I was just listening to the new Beck single in the van, and it's like totally going back to being a hip hop sound from the previous record, which was all folky. And Beck seems to do that, like every record, like a folk record, then like a weird record, then a hip hop record, like.
And why not? I don't want to listen to the same album over and over again as an artist, but also as a music fan. I love when bands take me on journeys for each album, and like I think a perfect example is Radiohead. I mean, they obviously have like a very definable sound just because Tom York, he has such a unique voice.
He does,
it's so recognizable, but especially their first album, it's so different and it just puts you in a trance. I'm like, wow. I wasn't like a huge fan of the two albums that preceded that, but I'm like a Radiohead fan all over again. So
they like to change it up.
Yeah, and it's exciting, and it keeps your listeners kind of on their toes a little bit because they never know what to expect. And I think that's what makes being a musician so exciting, is you can do whatever you want. I don't think there's any rules.
There's no rules. And that said, there's bands like Spoon, who I have love all their records, even though they kind of keep a vibe and a mojo, and they play around within it, but you can kind of always tell when it's a Spoon tune.
True.
And that said, it's like we just do what makes us happy. Other artists do what make them happy, and that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah.
Now, there comes a point in time with all bands, I think, where it becomes less about getting together and having fun making music, and more about this could be a viable entity. We can push this and maybe achieve some commercial success. Was there a moment that you guys can recall where that kind of happened?
I don't think that's ever really been a focus for us. I mean, yes, of course, we would love to have careers, like full-time careers doing this, and have that kind of success. But I think with this album, what was so important for us was just making something that was so honestly us, at least honest for us at that time. So I think, the fact that it's self-produced, and the fact that we weren't taking any outside influence from any industry people or anyone else. It was just us in our own little world, focusing on really making something that was special to us. So I think that's when it's exciting, when people really respond well to your music, when you've created something that you haven't been influenced by, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that's when it really speaks the most to people, is when they hear you in your music, or they see you in your video, and they can tell that it's so honestly and genuinely you. So this album is just all about us kind of proclaiming our creative independence, and it's been quite a journey. Making it work. Yeah.
It's a great time, in my opinion. I'm not a musician, but to get a label deal back in the day meant that you would be homogenized. Like someone would have influence over your art. If they didn't like it, it probably wouldn't make it on the album, or make it on the album is like, okay, you can do that as a B-side, but this is what we want.
We need a single.
And you do have the opportunity to just be artists and do it yourself. Like there's no exterior influence in that regard.
Well, I've always been an album guy myself, so you can always tell, or not always, but you can often tell putting on a record, some records kind of have like 4 or 5 wicked songs off the top and then sort of fall off. Or they'll have a jumble and you're thinking like, okay, this is quite manufactured feeling. And then there's some other records that you put on and they're just great from front to back. And funnily enough, usually the records that are great from front to back aren't as commercially successful as the super engineered mega hit records. So, I mean, that's not always the case, of course, but that's just a funny thing I've been noticing lately.
It's the Pinkerton effect.
But I mean, that's whenever I'm listening to music, I never do playlists. I know a lot of people do that these days, but unless it's for a party or something. But I like pacing out my listening experience to okay, this record's going to take 40 minutes, and then I'm going to listen to this record. Or for driving too, like timing your drive that way. It's a lot less to think about. Compared to, okay, next 3 minutes I need this, and then another 3 minutes later I need this song, and it's like, no, 40 minutes.
You're committing yourself.
Go on a journey, man. That's cool.
Like as an artist, you're committing yourself to creating, either a story and taking your listener on a journey. But I feel like it's also a commitment on the listener's part to give that undivided kind of attention to an album, and it's. I think it's almost a rare thing now because, like Liam said, a lot of people are just wanting that one single and to create their playlist. But I'm still very much an album collector. And
we want to be album makers. And for us, I mean, we've both been playing music since we were very young, and it's just something we've always done, and there isn't any stopping. So, we're not gunning for, we're gonna have hopefully a hit with this band. We would have broken this band up 5 years ago if that were the case, right? Because it's like, okay, we've had some ups and downs, and we've had a lot of really great successful moments, and that's awesome. We're very lucky to have that, and I think moving forward, Jackie and I just work so well together. We've said it to each other many times, like, okay, we're just going to keep it going, and that's what's so cool about this record is that this, as Jackie said, is sort of declaring our independence. We've figured out a way that we can do it entirely on our own, and it's very sustainable. We're working a lot out of our own private studio spaces, and we've got gear. It's kind of like we just keep plugging away, and there were probably 22 songs in the works, and the 11 that made it onto Rhonda obviously made it onto this record. Other ideas maybe just weren't ready, or we thought, okay, let's just take a step away and maybe we'll revisit that. And there's obviously new ideas, so it's like we can keep not pumping these records out. It takes a long time, but keep it up in a way where we're gonna have, it sounds unique because it's not having as much rule following as it could have. We're just sort of doing whatever we want. So we're sort of happy creating this thing that's going to sound not like anybody else, just because we're the people doing it. So if that makes any sense.
Are you describing Rhonda as a concept album? It sounds like it's got an overall theme. So.
It is. Yeah. I mean, all of our experiences as musicians have definitely impacted the story of Rhonda, but Rhonda is a fictional character that we created who basically embarks on this journey. I'm not going to say what yet because I want to save some for surprise. But it's basically her battling with her insecurities as a person, as an artist, and she's just trying to figure it out like everybody else. And there's also a fantasy element as well, but again, I don't want to give too much away. But we're very excited. I've been working on a graphic novel to pair up with the album, so we're very excited about that. So there's going to be an exciting visual element to it. So we're playing with all different mediums of the art and media world.
And so far the videos too, we sort of had fun creating these characters that have the looks, and they're going to be recurring throughout the videos. We just shot the Money video, so who knows, that's probably going to be another couple weeks at least before it's ready to come out, but it's continuing with the theme from the War video and a bunch of the characters, and
you'll recognize some characters.
So I mean, it's
same director, or are you doing?
Same director, and we're producing the videos and everything ourselves and writing the treatments for it, just because we have a very clear vision of what we want. And we want everything to draw a parallel with the graphic novel. So,
Did Rhonda come out of an idea that you wrote songs for, or were there songs that sort of steered you towards the idea or the concept?
The songs came first. We knew that we wanted to write a concept album, but we weren't sure what it was. So we just kind of let everything happen quite organically. And so we just got in a room and we just kept hashing out songs and ideas. And then we started noticing very similar themes coming out in a lot of the lyrics and just the overall energy of the songs, and
it's also neat to get we were probably 2/3 of the way done the songs on this record when we sort of realized that there was a theme going through at it, and then once you sort of get to that point and realize that you have a string running through everything, if there's something that's yet to be finished that you're sort of struggling with, if you sort of then realize, oh, well, how can we tie this to the story? Maybe that's just the injection that the song needs to be completed, and you sort of think, okay, well, it's already sort of loosely, thematically making sense, but let's just change a couple things, take it in a slightly new direction, and that's kind of how the last few songs of this record just sort of,
everything
got us to wrap it up very quickly, because we sort of realized, oh my gosh, these are the songs. These ones are not quite done yet, but now that we know what we're doing, it's like we had a vision. So that's cool. Yeah.
Now I'm going to jump back a little bit. You recorded a French version of Kill Count.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I grew up in Ottawa, and what I love most about Ottawa is it truly is a bilingual city.
Yeah.
I went to French immersion growing up. All my family, at least my dad's side of the family, is from Montreal. My mom's side of the family, they're from Penetanguishene, which is Franco-Ontarian community. And I just always thought, I just thought it was really important to kind of acknowledge my roots. And, I speak French, and I don't want to isolate any communities in Canada. And I think it's really important to embrace the fact that Canada is a bilingual country.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really am Canadian when I can speak and sing in both languages, So, I thought that was just really important for the band to kind of tap into the Franco-Ontarian and Quebecois market. It was a great way to connect with them, and people seem to be really receptive to it as well. So. Sometimes.
Is that the only track you've done in French?
Yeah.
All right.
We can do more though.
We'll do more. We'll do more.
We'll do more?
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
Yeah.
In addition to having a band relationship, you also have a sibling in the band.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find there's any compartmentalization around, here's my brother and I have a relationship with him, and here's my band and we also have this relationship? Is there any sort of
my brother actually recently left the band.
I didn't know that.
That's
okay.
It's fine. It's all on good terms.
Okay.
He decided to pursue other avenues, which makes us sad, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've had years together.
Yeah, we've been playing music together since I was 13 and he was 11.
Right.
So really long time. So it was definitely hard to say goodbye to that era, basically. But it worked for years. It was great. I loved having him in the band and working with him. Creating music with your sibling can be challenging sometimes.
I'll bet.
Because your comfort levels. It's different than working with like a friend or a complete stranger, right? So it was challenging at times, but I feel like because we were siblings, we were able to be so brutally honest with each other, in good and bad ways, obviously. But yeah, we love him, we miss him.
Mm-hmm.
But
Cool. Yeah, and just thinking back about the writing, it was kind of, this project ever since it began always felt very real and organic, and it wasn't so much the musical vision that brought us together. It was sort of the them being family and us all being like really close. So because I'd known Jackie for a few years before we started this band,
Right.
and so from the get-go it always had a very unique and familiar feel, which is something you don't get a lot of the time with bands. Sometimes it's just a bunch of friends, and usually there's kind of one leader, or everyone is different, every band is different, but I don't think any of us have ever been in a project that felt like this. And again, it's Steve was with us for 8 years, so that's a long time. We always thought all three of us were in it for the long run, but Jackie and I are still super awesome. not to say that Steve's not awesome, but he just sort of had a realization that there's other stuff he wants to do, and
Happens.
that happens. So,
Yeah.
we're still very lucky to be doing this.
Can you talk a little bit about what it is to be an independent band in Canada? What you like about it and what you find unique and challenging about it?
Yeah. I feel like we kind of touched upon that earlier when we said that we feel like, we have that independence and that freedom to create how we want to create and release things the way we see fit. I think it's pretty amazing in today's digital age that you can be a YouTube band or artist. Even before that, there was MySpace. It's pretty incredible that you can connect with so many different people on one or many platforms just on the internet. So I think it's really exciting. I love being in touch with our fans and messaging them on Instagram or on Facebook, and just seeing what their interests are, seeing what they like, seeing what they don't like, and that definitely inspires you and will not dictate, but I definitely think it will kind of steer you guys in a neat direction, because your fans are kind of telling you what they want to see, right? So specifically being a Canadian artist, I think it's amazing because Canada technically has a smaller population. It's not like being in the States. So I feel like you can cover a lot of ground. Not geographically speaking,
but also
population wise, I feel like it's a small music community here, and I feel like everyone kind of knows everyone, and it feels really neat to be a part of that music network. So,
and then in Canada, when you do want to tour, you do end up covering a lot of ground.
A lot of geographic ground, literally, yeah.
And then people in
15-hour drives, sign me up.
Is there a live concert that you've seen that utterly inspired you?
Oh my gosh, there's been a lot for many different reasons. One that actually I'll never forget this. I remember I went and saw the Yeah Yeah Yeahs play at Ottawa Blues Fest. What year was it? I think it was 09? The year, maybe 09.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had never seen them play live before, and I had been listening to them, since early university years, maybe late high school. And I just thought Karen O was just the coolest human being ever. And I was like, I need to be front row. I need to be up close for this, because at big festivals, it's so hard to feel that intimate vibe that you would get in a venue, right? So anyway, so I made sure I was really close. And what was her song? The Skeleton song. Skeleton me. Oh, I love that song. Yeah. And it started to rain when she started singing that. And something, I don't know if it was just because of the build-up of me anticipating this concert and or if it was just the energy from the band or the energy from the audience, but I just started crying. I was like, this is the most amazing experience I've ever experienced before. It's crazy. Yeah. So I think on an emotional level, that was the best show I've ever seen, just because I was waiting to see them for years. Cool. And they just put on a great show. They're amazing. I'm not sure if you've seen them before, but who was yours?
Yeah, a long time ago, I think it was, Radiohead on might have been the Amnesiac tour, because they were still playing stuff from Kid A, but it could have been one or the other, and they did a big show at Molson Park in Barrie, and I got to go check that out. A neighbor, on the street where I grew up, had tickets and invited me and my sisters and some friends to all go up, because he had a corporate I think he worked for Molson and got us all tickets, and that was kind of
good to have friends like that.
At that point I was already really into smaller, going to smaller shows and seeing local bands and whatnot, but kind of getting to go see Radiohead in that era and just being blown away by how awesome their sound was and just how amazing the musical show was a pretty cool moment for sure.
Awesome. Right on.